Good day everyone. In this video, we're going to make a more difficult figures using my basic knowledge and techniques I learned when I was taking my technical drafting in junior high school. Okay, let's start. First, create a circle having a diameter of 1.13. Then, create another circle having a diameter of 2.06. And for the third circle, having a diameter of 2.88. And from the center of this three circle, make a line 1.5 going downward. And by 2.62 to the right. Use this endpoint as the center of the circle having diameter of 0.75. And for the outer circle, having a diameter of 1.88. From the bottom part of the outer circle, make a line measuring 0.38 going downward. Then create another line measuring 1.12. Then, use offset command to offset it both sides by 0.28. And make another offset for the outer vertical lines measuring 0.19 and just extend it up to the circumference of the outer circle. From the second circle right here, make a line up to the second circle of this figure, but make sure it is a tangent line. To make it a tangent line, type L, then hold Shift plus right click. Select tangent, then click right here, then just repeat the process. From the center of the three circles, create a line to the right measuring 5.26 that will serve as our guidelines. Those color yellow lines is set to be our guidelines. Then, make a line from the right outer circle upward until it reaches our guidelines. From the endpoint of our guidelines, create a line measuring 1.62 upward. Then make another line to the left by 3.62. Then 1.26 downward and just connect it up to here. To create those small circles, make a guidelines from here up to here. From its midpoint, make another guidelines measuring 0.76 and 2.26 to the left. Those endpoints will serve as the center of the small circles. Then finally, create a circle having a diameter of 0.375. And then just copy it and point out to the another endpoint. Temporarily, turn off guidelines in layer properties. To make this curve in every corner, type F or fillet. Select radius, input 0.12, then select multiple and click every line that making a corner spot. While to make this big curve, just make another line to have this perfect fillet. Again, type F or fillet. Select radius, input 0.94, then just click these two lines that creating a corner. Then, just remove the excess lines. Next is this line. Type L, then hold Shift plus right click, then click from the second circle circumference, then again, hold Shift plus right click up to the curved corner of this rectangle. Then, type trim to remove the excess lines of the circle. From this part, make line upward measuring 0.5, then make another line going to the right by 0.76 or 0.76 and 1.06 downward. Finally, just connect it up to the circumference of the second circle and just trim the excess line. To make the given measurements, extend this line by 0.06 and just extend this line to complete this part of the figure. Well, To create this oblique line, type L, then type at 3.05, press tab with a degree of 79. Then, create another line upon this line, measuring 2.75. Then, offset the 2.75 line by 0.28 in both sides. Focus first on the left side offset. From this endpoint, make another line upon it measuring 1.76 downward. Then, from the endpoint, make a line measuring 0.30 to the left, but make sure it is a straight line. Then, fillet it by 0.12. Then remove the offset line. While in the right offset line, from this endpoint, make a line by 1.76 downward, or just offset the left 1.76 line. Then from the two endpoints, make a line measuring 0.15 to the left. Then, fillet it again by 0.12. Then remove the offset line and the excess lines. Then, change the color by green with its line type of dashed line or hidden line. Let's move on to this arc. To create this, we're going to use circle with a radius of 2.38. And just remove those parts of the circle that is not included. Then, to create this green dash line, again, use guideline for accuracy, measuring 0.15 downward and upward from the center of the circle. Then, finally create horizontal lines up to this vertical line. While, to make this green dash line, again, make a guidelines measuring 0.2 from the midpoint of the center line going upward. Then, make the horizontal green dash line. Then, offset it by 0.40 downward. Well, to create those magenta dash center line, just follow those guidelines we've made earlier. First, make a line up to the circumference of the circle and just remove the excess line. Next is this magenta dash center line measuring 7 units to the right. And lastly, from this midpoint, create a line to the left by 1 unit and just extend it to the right by 1 unit also. To finally finish the first figure, put every measurements needed in the figure using dim linear, dim aligned, dim radius, and dim diameter in annotation in the ribbon panel. Use red color for the leading and dimension lines, while make sure that the color of the text or measurements is color green. You can modify it by typing dim style. But before that, from this part of the figure, make a line downward by 3.85. And from this part of the figure, make another line downward by 3.68. Finally, we already made the first figure. Just turn off the first dimension and measurements for us to be concentrated in the second figure. Before we proceed to the second figure, we will make 10 yellow guidelines in order to make our work easier and better. First, make a line to the right by 7.1. Second, by 4.92. Third, by 5.33. Fourth, by 10.92. Fifth, by 10.16. Sixth, by 11.86. Seventh, by 9.71. Eighth, by 8.02. Ninth, by 6.96. And lastly, by 7.49. Then, hide guidelines first. After that, make a line from this endpoint to have the gap of figure 1 and figure 2, measuring 5.1. Then make another line measuring 5.06. Then, show the guidelines we've made a while ago. From this line, connect it to the second set guidelines. Make a 3 horizontal connected line to the right measuring 0.56, 0.94, and 0.38, resulting to 1.88 units. From every endpoint of those lines, make a vertical lines downward up to the set line. Then, this intersection will serve as the center of the small circle with a diameter of 0.375. From the center of the circle, make a line to the right by 2.26. Then, from the endpoint of this line, create another line going upward until it reaches the first set guidelines. Create a line to the left measuring 0.56 and 0.14 respectively. From every endpoint of those lines, make a vertical lines downward by 1.29 units. Then, create a line extending up to this line. Then, extend this line up to these vertical lines. After that, create a guideline measuring 0.265. Then, from the endpoint of vertical lines, create line to the left by 0.62 and just connect it up to this intersection. Before we move on to the fillet of every corner, extend this line up to here. Then create another line downward up to this line. After that, make another lines upon those existing lines for our fillet part. Then, let's proceed using fillet to curve every corner that is needed in the figure with a radius of 0.12. Then, simply remove those unwanted lines and remove excess lines using trim command. To continue, extend this line up to this set line. Make a horizontal line across this vertical line. Then, to create this oblique line, create a horizontal line from the midpoint and lower endpoint of our previous guidelines. Then from the endpoint of our midpoint guidelines, connect it up to the fourth yellow guidelines we've made earlier. Then, to create another oblique line, make a line measuring 2.1237 with a degree of 308. Then, make a horizontal line measuring 0.94 units to the right. Then, create line going downward by 1.88 units. From the midpoint of vertical line, create a guideline to the left by 1.12. The endpoint of these 1.12 guidelines will serve as the center of the two circles having a diameter of 0.375 and 1.12. Then, create a guidelines from the right side of inner circle, upward, to check if the oblique line is properly aligned. From the previous guidelines, create line to the left until it touches this vertical line. Then, create another line going down up to the 6 yellow guidelines we've made earlier, and connect it up to the circumference of the larger circle. Then, make a downward line up to the 7th yellow guidelines. Then, fillet every corner that is needed in the figure with a radius of 0.12 in this part. While from this part, extend this line up to the 8 guidelines we've made earlier. Then, create a new line from a set line up to the 7th guidelines for fillet purposes. Then, make another line from the endpoint to the right up to this endpoint. Again, create another line upon this line for fillet purposes also. Then, extend these two vertical lines up to the 7th guidelines we've made earlier. After that, create the small circle in the second intersection with the diameter of 0.375. Then, create a horizontal line above the circle. Then, from the left end point of this line, make a line going upward up to this point. Create a horizontal line from the circle up to this point, then find its midpoint. Then create vertical lines upward. Next, trim those unwanted lines. After trimming, create the semicircle using fillet. Also, fillet those curvy corners needed in the figure. After that, again, create another guidelines going downward by 0.94, then to the left by 4.7 units. From the endpoint of this line, create a circle having a diameter of 0.375 and 1.12. From the top of the larger circle, connect it up to this vertical line. Then, from this part of the figure, create a guideline. Then from its midpoint, make another guideline downward up to these yellow guidelines. While from the endpoint of our 9th set guidelines we made earlier, create a line upward until it reaches this line. From its midpoint, make another line until it touches this vertical line. Before we proceed in making those curvy lines, from the bottom part of the larger circle, make a line measuring 0.80 units. Then in order to create those curvy lines, use arc, start, and radius in the ribbon panel. The first curve, from here up to this point, having a radius of 1.76 units. While the second curve having 1.50 as its radius. Then to finally enclose the figure, just create line from this endpoint until it touches the curve. Then trim those excess lines. As we can see, we already made the second figure. But let's proceed to this magenta line. From this midpoint, create a line to the left by 3.9 units using magenta color and line type center dash line. Then, to create those green dash line, first, make a guideline from the top and bottom of the inner circle up to the top and bottom of the outer circle. Then from its midpoint, create that green dash line and just extend it. Then, from these port guidelines we made earlier, create the green dash line from this point up to this point. And from this vertical line up to the endpoint of the oblique line. While, to create this line, it must have the same distance of this line. So just offset it by 1.12 upward. And extend it up to this point. Then, from this guideline, make a green dash line up to this point, then offset it upward by 0.1325 units. Then, offset it again by 0.02 downward, and finally, offset it downward by 0.1325 units. To finally finish the second figure, put every measurements needed in the figure using different kinds of dimension in annotation of the ribbon panel, just like what we do in the first figure. I hope you gain more knowledge on how important using a guidelines in every figures. Just comment below on how my amazing techniques was applied in doing this activity. Kindly like, share, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell for more videos. God bless!